Hey Apartment Therapy, I'm Jordan.
I'm Luke.
Welcome to our 529 square foot apartment in Brooklyn. We've been in the space for about a little over 3.5 years. When we first saw the apartment, there was so much that we liked here. I think, it's a pre-war building, so there's just a lot of that historical charm that we were looking for. Parquet floors, there's some built-ins. We love the arched doorways, but it really just needed a lot of love.
We didn't do too much right off the bat. We repainted everything, the walls, the ceiling, outlet covers and stuff like that, they're minor, but they make a difference, I think.
And then when it came to decorating, we really wanted to, obviously it's a studio, so we're working with very limited space here. And we had basically one choice to have our living room and bedroom in the same spot, but we wanted it to feel like different spaces. So we did that through color and through rugs and furniture. So you'll see our living room is here, and we've sort of decided to go with a lot of soft neutrals. And then our bedroom we tried to make feel a little bit darker and moodier. Maybe it's successful, I'm not sure, but that was sort of our intention in doing that way. This is our living room. We really wanted it to feel calming in here and feel like a separate space from the bedroom, which is right behind us. Luke had done a lot of the finding of the furniture in here.
We both tend towards walnut, and we found this really beautiful walnut coffee table. I think we got it room and board, but I absolutely love it. I work in art book publishing, so kind of just having this variation of some of the books that I've worked on out is always nice. They're beautiful and they add nice color to the space too. So we kind of kept everything sort of like low profile. Jordan wanted to add a little height, which works really well with this because we found everything was super low to the ground and we wanted to kind of get that dimension. One of the first things that we found that we really liked was this credenza here, or like TV stand. We actually got it from Spain, but it's got these 3 panels. I think it works really well with the space, just the height of things. This chair over here that we've had for a long time, so we found that it fit really well with this space, luckily. It's from a place called Messiah Co., I believe. It's just a really beautiful chair and goes well with a lot of the other walnut furniture that we kind of based things around in here.
One of the pieces that I find the most interesting in the apartment is this side table, which actually, I think it's all limestone, and it weighs so much. It took 2 really buff guys to bring it in here. I don't think if we ever move, it's staying here because it just simply is too heavy, but I just love how imperfect it is. I think it's a really interesting piece. I love stone. And then, this cabinet we got from Crate and Barrel. Luke was not sure about it, I will say that. And I was like, no, trust me on this. I think we need a really big piece to anchor the space. Plus, selfishly, I was really looking for a way to display all our pottery. So if you open the cabinet, we've got some interesting things in here. Luke and I had gone to the Southwest a couple of years ago, and we found this pot, which is so beautiful. If you looked, it's all carved. It's got these really interesting animals carved all over it, and I just had to have it. So we got that, and then I want to point out these animals too, which I just think are really interesting and fabulous. And then Luke and I are both from upstate New York in a really small town that's very close to Hudson, and so we do a lot of shopping when we go back home, and we had found these etchings. It's a woman wearing a coat and a guy wearing a coat, and they were $2 each, and I just thought they were so neat.
This one was a person that I went to college with, and it's a print that they had made in the printmaking program. It almost reminds me a little bit of the Bosch Garden of Earthly Delights painting. There's just so much going on.
And then the couch, just from Sixpenny, and I had been targeted by them on Instagram, like so many of us. We want our space to be really beautiful, but it has to be functional and it has to be comfortable. So this felt like a really good investment. I like to travel to the Southwest every year. I go with my mom, and it's kind of just became this really sacred place, a place where I feel really happy. And you'll see that sort of Southwest coming through in the rugs and the pillows. We've got a lot of pottery from that part of the world. I really love the black pottery from the Santa Clara Pueblo. Every year I go, I collect a new piece, and then we have this wall hanging, which is a Navajo rug, which we decided to frame because it was so beautiful. I think, throughout you'll see just elements of that coming through, even just in our color choices.
Obviously, with a studio apartment, one of the challenges that everyone has is sort of like making that delineation in the space between like a living space and, your bedroom. We kind of decided to do that, and I think it's common to do that with like, where the couch ends and the bedroom begins, but we kind of chose to further do that with, we have this sort of like buffet table thing here, which breaks it up a little bit more before you come into the bedroom area. And we've got like this large rug in here that kind of makes it clear like this is a separate space a little bit. And then again, like the large cabinet that we have over here also helps to do that. Like it kind of ends where the bedroom space begins, and then we have these hooks that are more of like our clothing is there, so it's like this is our bedroom, you know what I mean? Yeah. So we didn't really want to have a big like room divider that breaks up the space in that way and like blocks them off. We wanted it to still feel open. I feel like the way that we've set it up kind of works pretty well that way.
Yeah, and in addition to separating the spaces, this table is very functional for us. We, unfortunately, we're people who eat dinner in front of the TV, so we have these chairs here. And every night we set them up in front of this table, and it serves as like our makeshift dining room table as well. We chose a lot of dark colors in this space, and we love greens. So I think like we were trying to keep sort of a consistent color palette through the apartment, since it is such a small space that you'll see a lot of the same sort of like terracotta, browns, green, and black to have as sort of accent colors throughout. So that's why we chose this palette for our bed. I want to point out we've got wedding photos of us over here. These are, I think they're tintypes, right? Yeah. And Luke and I had gotten married. We were supposed to get married in 2020, but of course with the pandemic, our plans were upended. So we just did a really, really small thing the following year. We were able to, as a group, all go to this original tintype studio that's in Manhattan, and we got these really fun photos taken. So they're kind of old-timey, and we look like ghosts, I feel like, but I really like it.
Over in the bedroom, like again, because it's a studio, you're always looking for like interesting, unique, viable storage options. This bed, I think it's a little like taller than we would normally like to have for a bed, but one thing that works successfully is it came with like drawers under here, which we tend to keep seasonal things, sweaters and stuff like that. Jordan has had this weaving for a long time.
I don't even know where it's from. It was my mom's, and somehow I inherited it in one of my early apartments, like post-college, and it's just been with me ever since.
I think like for a small space, maybe a lot of people would like forgo both having nightstands on either side, but it's just something like, I really need a light on my side of the bed, a place to like put a book when I'm done reading or something like that. It doesn't make me feel too cramped.
I guess where we're more limited is like, I don't know that there's other ways for us to organize the space if we got sick of this orientation of the room. Like, I don't know. I feel like we're kind of locked in because of having the nightstands like this, but I think to your point, like we just need lights and storage.
Like Jordan said, we did some work finishing and repainting the frames around them and the radiators. They were so like caked with just so many years of repainting, so that was a project. But when we moved in, it had these old blinds that were, I mean, it was better than nothing for a little while while we were living here. But Jordan found these really beautiful linen curtains that add to that too. So even with the shades totally open, there's people right across from us, but we still get a little bit of privacy and get some nice, the light in here is really beautiful in like the morning and early afternoon.
So we are in our office area, which is also our entryway. And this is where I work usually when I'm here. I love a museum gift shop, and we got these really great rock crayons from the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum gift shop in Santa Fe, and I just think they're so cool.
This like two-headed bear piece is from another person that I had went to undergrad with. We finally got it framed in the way that it deserved to be, and I think it looks really beautiful. We've got another painting from a really great friend of ours, Drew Beatty over here, who made it for us.
He made it for Luke. It's a portrait of Luke, if you look closely.
In some ways, yeah. And a former coworker of mine, Avery, made this really beautiful piece that just like catches the light in a really nice way over here.
This is the first wall that you see when you walk into our apartment, and we've actually just decided to order, we just got 2 sort of tall shelves to go on either side of the window. I think adding shelves will just add some nice needed height to this space, and again, like, plus it's a nice additional spot for us to put pottery and books. So
yeah, we've got, you're seeing little piles of books all over the place. We really need a more dedicated spot to put them, so
yeah,
we'll finally have that too.
So the rug we got from a store online called Revival, and they have a really robust collection. Some of them are vintage, and they clean them and ship them, and I found them to be fairly affordable. This one is one of their one-of-a-kind vintage pieces.
Over here in this section, like where we have our coat rack now, when we initially moved in, there was this really hideous, non-functional intercom that was sitting here. Jordan's dad helped us. We just ripped it out, patched it up. You can't even tell. I think it was like right here. Yeah, that was the first order of business, I think, for our entryway. We didn't want that to be the first thing you see when you walk in, The intercom kind of speaks to just like the age of the building and then like the different phases that the building has gone through. But like older buildings have so much more character and charm. We've got this built-in here that is really beautiful, and
we loved the built-in.
We did a little bit of like refinishing just to kind of like even out some of the years of caked up paint and stuff, but the arched architecture of the built-in and the archways of the doorways and everything are just something that we really love.
This is where we keep a lot of knickknacks. We have like a bunch of candles and seasonal stuff, our umbrella, some games.
We kind of wanted to stay with some of the elements that might still feel natural for the age of the building, which is 1938. When we were redoing things, one of the things that we did was replace the lighting fixtures. We decided to go with these like schoolhouse lights that I think work really well with that sort of time period.
Yeah.
We replaced all the light switches. We found these push button light switches that felt they went with the time of the building as well, like older switches like that. They were things that were low impact financially, and we could do them very easily in the meantime and sort of quickly make it feel a lot more of a cohesive space that we wanted to be in. Here we are in the kitchen. This was a space that immediately when we bought it, we knew we were probably going to tackle in a more serious way in terms of like a renovation for it, which we ultimately did after a couple of years. We're in a co-op, so everything takes board approval, and that can take a really long time. And pulling permits, like it's just a different ball game than like outside of the city or something. So there was a steep learning curve for us. Our contractor, who we found through a place called Block, you can find contractors through them who are vetted specifically for like working in a city, and it's a galley kitchen with like a dining room area. So there's not like a ton of major changes you can go with. We're sticking with the same shape. We didn't move plumbing or anything like that.
This wall had all cabinetry, upper and lower. The stove wasn't totally fitting in its space, and there was just absolutely nothing on that side of the room, so it was very imbalanced in how it felt, or I felt that way at least. We knew right away like we wanted to take the cabinetry down on this side to create like more of an openness to it. I felt like it was closed in and cluttered and dark. In the end, I think like we found things that we just knew we had to have. Like the marble, on a whim, had gone to a stone yard in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, and we saw this slab of marble, and I don't know, it was like kind of love at first sight for both of us, where we were like, I just like couldn't imagine using any other piece of marble after that. My mom describes it as like, she's like, it's kitchen jewelry. It just is so pretty.
We were originally planning on like a tile backsplash. The woman at the stone yard kind of told us like, you're purchasing this whole slab anyway. It sounds like your kitchen is small enough that you could just do the backslash in the same marble. You should talk to the fabricator about if you can do that. And it was, and we're so happy that we did. Like, it works really well, and we had enough left over even to do this little shelf up here, which works really well. I love that. And then, we needed a little transition piece between the kitchen and the hallway here. So just makes it really feel pretty cohesive.
We had already decided we wanted the terracotta floors, which feels so nice to touch. If you've done any traveling through the Southwest and through Arizona, there's just incredible red rocks there.
And I'll say, like, as far as, the color of the cabinetry, in like wanting to keep to the time of the building a little bit, it just feels a little more classic in that way, and leaned into that with the lighting too.
These ones are from Anthropologie, and I just had seen them on their site for years and really liked them, so kind of wanted an excuse to have them in our space.
Yeah. Before, we had cabinetry above the sink and all over here, and with deciding to scrap all of that, we knew that we were losing a fair amount of storage, which is always a concern in a small space like this. So originally the cabinetry over here didn't go up to the ceiling. We decided to extend that up there. I've never had a pantry before, so we were able to do that. We went with a smaller oven, so we had like a small space here that we were able to like squeeze in another little like spice cabinet. I find that to be so useful.
Yeah. And our trash, we are hiding our trash in this drawer, which is great visually to not have to look at it.
Yeah, the functionality of the kitchen really brings me a lot of joy, I think.
Yeah. So when we first moved in, this side of the room was just totally empty. It was something that we were really conscious of when we were redoing the kitchen. We were like, what are we gonna do? And we decided we wanted to do a banquette, which we just felt like would be a nice way to sort of balance it and be really functional too, because it serves as seating and it allows us to have some storage, which is where we keep all of our things that we don't need to access all the time.
Yeah, we've got like hardware stuff in there, like paints for the apartment and stuff like that, and tuck them away in there.
Definitely wanting to bring sort of colors from the rest of the apartment in the space where we can. So we've got these Killam pillows, and then we have a couple of linen pillows too, and I just got those on Amazon, I think, which were very affordable. Mostly just focused on filling out this side of the room in a way that felt really intentional.
As far as the furniture in here, we went with walnut for the table and the chairs. The chairs took us a while to find the right ones that we wanted. I think we actually had this table, which we got from Design Within Reach. I think we had this for a little while before we were actually able to settle on the chairs that we ended up with. This tends to be, on the days that I do work from home here in the apartment, I'll usually set up in any number of spots here, either on like the banquette or at one of the chairs and the table.
And then behind me we've got a wine rack, which was a piece that we had seen at a store in Lake Placid called Dartbrook. My mom had noticed it. I didn't initially take note of it, but she was like, that would be really great in a Brooklyn apartment. And Luke and I were thinking in the car, and we were like, should we go back to get it? And we did. And so that was an earlier piece we had purchased before we had even done the kitchen. But I think it's kind of an interesting statement. We're not like huge wine drinkers despite having this great wine rack, but it's fun if we have friends over or something. When we moved in, the bathroom was pretty cute. The tile we liked, the tub we loved, the toilet was no frills but perfectly functional. We decided we wanted to paint it to match the shower curtain that we had gotten, and we went like a really dark green, which everyone kind of advised us not to because it's a small space, and they were like, keep it white and bright. Green was calling me, so we did green, and we did all of that ourselves, and we ended up getting new light fixtures, and the medicine cabinet is new to us. We have this cool stump that we've been putting different face washes on and candles and stuff.
Yeah, just more of like a little refresh in there than like an overhaul.
That's a good way to describe it. We wanted to paint the apartment when we moved in, just it felt like it needed a fresh coat of paint. We had really tried a lot of different options, but landed on Benjamin Moore Simply White. Yeah. It's kind of like the perfect white, in my opinion. It's warm, it's neutral, and it felt like we had already purchased a couple of pieces of furniture at that point. It just needed to be like the right hue for what we were going for, and I think it is. Like I'm really happy with it. And then we went a different shade for the doorways, which was,
It's just a little creamier.
it's a little creamier. And that's the same color that we used on our cabinets in the kitchen as well. Magnolia, which is Joanna Gaines' paint line, we wanted to bring a lot of the same colors throughout the whole apartment.
This is the first and only space that we've ever owned. Before this, we've always rented. We rented an apartment not too far up the road in Brooklyn. Being married, at this point, to home for me is just wherever we are together. When we first moved into our first apartment, I remember there was a bit of like butting heads of style, when we first started, and it took some getting used to. There was like some growing pains there. Jordan would tend to approach things from a more like holistic point of view. I would find individual pieces like, oh, this is cool and this is also cool. Maybe they don't belong together, or, I feel like I've learned a lot from you about things that are great but maybe not right for this space necessarily or something.
I think that there are some spaces that look really, really good with really eclectic, vibrant things. Not everything has to look great in every single space. I think there's lots of very good interior design. I just think when it comes to where I'm living, I want it to feel cohesive in a certain way. And
for us, being in this space like home, we want and need our home to feel comfortable, calm, like a retreat from what's going on around us, whether that's like from a long day at work or a long commute. That's been a bit of like a guiding principle in how we've approached setting this space up, and it feels successful to me here.
For me, home is definitely a place where you feel safe and you can be your true self, wear sweatpants and watch a great movie and be with someone you love. I think we're very lucky that we get to do that.